Hello, everybody. This is Scott here with Grey House Literary Agency. Here's the latest episode that we're going to be talking about today for the educational series. Too much information. This is a problem that I think a lot of authors have. In fact, while I'm recording this one right now, at the time of recording this, I'm actually working with one of my authors who has this problem. And she's slowly figuring out, oh, I know where all of this goes to. But too much information. Good old TMI, right? And we really want to talk about that. There is a huge impact on our story, and we want to make sure that we can take care of this. It also really does help out when you're trying to meet word count situations, right? So a lot of this information we're going to talk about, you can the too much information piece, I should say, you can come back, take that material out, and add that depth to other areas such as your character development and plot development. So it's always a good trade-off here. So let's go ahead and let's move on. What are we talking about with too much information? Well, basically, this is known as an info dump or information dumps, and we see this a lot of times with authors. And information dumps, you're reading along, if you've read a story like this before, you're reading along, and all of a sudden it's like somebody walked in with a box of all their research and they went, and they just dumped it on the table. That's an information dump. Authors are always adding this information because they think, something, the reader needs to know this piece of information. And a lot of times this happens when an author is doing the research while they're writing the story, or maybe this is brand new research and they are totally geeked out and hyped up on this research. So they're going to sit there and go, oh my gosh, the reader needs to know exactly all of this information. And the truth really is this: they probably don't need it. The readers don't need that information. The person who needed it, the author needed it. And there's nothing wrong with having all of this research. The key is knowing when you can put that information in. A lot of times, you're the only one who needed that research just to kind of get a grip on what's going on in your story. You're the one who needed it, not anybody else. So what does this actually look like? If you're reading a story, if you're looking at your own stories, it's extensive background information. It's like you're reading along and somebody says, okay, now before I go any further, let me give you some background information. Personally, it's a pet peeve of mine when you're sitting down maybe in a workshop or a training session at work, and the presenter starts off with 5 slides of, let me give you a history of how we got there. And you're like, I don't care about the history, I just want to know what the program is, right? So that's what we're talking about. It's also when somebody goes on and on about this same thing over and over again. That's going to be that background when there's too much information right there. Rambling on about how something looks. That's a big one. I see a lot of people doing that. And they're saying, I want to give you the picture of the room. Look, when you walk into a room, you don't have to describe literally every small little detail. Give us the big picture, call it quits, right? That's what we're talking about. It's also when we start to see repetitive information and repetitive material that showed up in a prior section. I see this a lot in the romance novels where the hero will see the hero in one chapter or one section, and he'll picture everything that was happening, say, at a party. And then we're going to go over to the heroine, and it's like they backtracked the storyline, and they did the exact same thing from the heroine's point of view. We already had that information the first time around. We don't need it the second time. That's what it's looking like. Okay? Now, what's the impact that you're going to get on your story? Now, a lot of people are going to go, it's not going to hurt the story. Yeah, it does. It's going to slow down the pacing. Okay? Think about a great thriller novel, for example, right? Great thriller novel, car chase and everything, and then suddenly they pause and they go, let me tell you what the car is made of. Let me describe all of this. And you're like, I'm in the middle of a race scene. I don't want that. That's too much information. So it slows the pacing down. I'll tell you the other place that it always happens, especially in romance novels, it's on those hot bedroom scenes, right? That the action is going on, right? And then all of a sudden somebody stops, the author stops because they want to describe the candles and the lighting and the mood. And you're like, no, this is not the time to be talking. Okay, so that's what it does. It also detracts from the story. Remember, your story, that central storyline, everything's got to be heading towards that. And if you suddenly are heading towards that, and then you take a side note to give me some background history, you lost us. Okay, and it does end up wearing your reader down. Your reader just becomes exhausted with countless hours of this information. So you always want to be cautious of that. No. So how do we fix this, right? You want to know this. How am I going to fix this? Surprisingly, the answer is pretty simple. Okay? Number one, go back and reread your story, but look immediately. These are big red flags. Look for where you have extensive passages about things. So literally look at the paragraphs. An easy way to do that is put it on your computer screen in front of you, zoom out, and just look for blocks of material. And you're going to go, okay, zoom in. That's going to be a red flag. That'll be a first place that I'm going to look. And then you're going to start asking yourself some questions. So ask yourself, first of all, does the reader really need this information right here and right now? Do they need it? If they don't, go ahead and put a line through it. Does the reader, again, need the information now? Whether or not they need the information at all, right? Maybe you don't. So you've got to kind of look at those two. Or, like I said, do they need it right now? Because if they don't need it now, but we can use it later, or we can use pieces of it, that's where you can start spreading that information out. So always ask yourself, do we actually need that information now? Think again about that comment that I made about those workshops when the person says, now before we get started, let me tell you the history of how we got here. We don't need that information now. That's something we could always go back and read later if we wanted to. So hopefully that'll give you a clue on this one. But ask yourself also, and this is a big one, can I say all of this information with one statement instead of talking about a whole lot of things? So if I'm describing an Italian restaurant, right, I don't have to describe the candles and the lighting and the wood features and the smell of Parmesan and basil and thyme and the meatballs and the pasta, right? If there's a way that I can just describe all of that in an intimate, casual Italian dining experience, people are going to go, I know what you're talking about. They don't need all of that information, so always ask yourself that. Okay? This is the last one, though. You have to give yourself permission to cut the material. It's okay. There is nothing wrong with that one. If you're worried about it, take this and take your whole manuscript, save it as a separate file, and then rename the one that you're going to work with the hacking room or whatever you want to call it, and just go for it. Okay? You still have saved the other one, so you don't have to panic, but hack it and then reread it. Okay? I think you're going to find a lot of that's going to get taken care of. So hopefully that's going to help you. But this is a big one. It's a big issue here. Too much information, too much of an info dump. We want to fix that. So hopefully that one's going to help you. Now, as always, listen, if you like this, I'm trying to keep these nice and short and coming out, trying to shoot for once a week, depending on what's going on in my schedule here. But I want you to listen. If you like this, make sure you subscribe to this and like this video series. Go watch the other ones as well. Remember, my promise is that once we hit the 1,000th subscriber, and I know that's a long way out there, but I know we can do it, I'm going to give one of the subscribers at least a 6-month mentorship with Grey House Literary Agency. So we definitely want to make sure that you are available for that one. Share this with your friends. Make sure that your other friends see this and say, hey, listen, you got a problem with this? Go watch Scott's video. It's a really good one. Make sure that you follow me over on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I am going to tell you, I tend to put more information even on my blog too, and I forgot to put that one on there too. But you can get my blog link as well, and that's all off of my Facebook, or off of my, my main website. Make sure that you go there as well. If you're definitely wanting to submit some stories to me, definitely use that submission guidelines there. And then remember also that I do have educational opportunities. I'll come out to your writing chapters. I can do presentations for writing chapters and writing groups. I don't do these things individually. But I am available. We can do things remotely. I can judge contests. You name it, I'm here for you. And I want you to also remember something, and I'm going to keep reminding you this one. This one comes from Ray Bradbury, but remember, you only fail if you stop writing. So make sure that you don't stop writing. Keep learning, and I will see you out there. Have a great rest of your day.